All right, guys, how's it going? So today's lesson is um, chapter 6, lesson 3. Starts on page 186. Um, I'm recording this on, I guess it's Thursday today. So your assignment is posted to Google Classroom. I think it becomes available to you guys at noon. So at noon or so, if you're doing this before, if you watch this video before, and you're like, well, there's no assignment up yet, don't worry about it. At noon, it'll become available and you can do it. This is a super short section, only about, I don't know, a couple pages. So should be pretty quick. So the last section was all about succession, and we talked about that. You guys remember, hopefully. It was all about, how ecosystems bounce back after natural disasters, and also how they change over time. So this section kind of piggybacks off of that and is talking about biodiversity within ecosystems and the resilience that they have. The reason that I say it kind of piggybacks off of that because a ecosystem succession and how it comes back from a natural disaster has a lot to do with the species that come back after the disaster, right? We talked about after big fires, a lot of times there's a different, population of grass species and things like that are on that land. And so biodiversity and having a wide range of different species in an area has a big influence on how well that ecosystem is able to thrive, and also how resilient it is in coming back from something like that. So first of all, I'll give you the definition for biodiversity. Again, I'm on page 186. And I know I've said this before, but I want you guys to read the section. Even though I make these videos, I want you guys to read the section either before or after. Obviously, hopefully, it would work really good if you read it before, at least skim through it, so that you have a little bit of an idea when we're talking about stuff. You've heard the terms before. But we are on page 186. So the definition for biodiversity, first of all, we'll just break the word down. Bio means life. We've talked about that. Diversity means obviously a range of different things, right? The opposite of diversity would be uniformity, right? Uniformity, you want uniformity in a cow herd, right? You want the majority of your cows to look the same. Hopefully they don't all look bad, right? You want them to look good. But the difference from uniformity is diversity, right? A wide range of different organisms within an ecosystem. So biodiversity would be the difference in life forms that are in an ecosystem. So biodiversity is the total of all genetically based variation in all organisms in the biosphere. Biodiversity can be defined as the variety and variability of animals, plants, and microorganisms, including ecosystem diversity, species diversity, and genetic diversity. So biodiversity doesn't just stop at the different species that are in an ecosystem. It also has to do with the genetic diversity, the variance within a species that you see in any given population. So we'll talk a little bit more about ecosystem diversity, which is the variety of habitats, communities, and ecological processes in a biosphere. So, ecosystem is a place where something lives. It's a collection of different populations of species that are in an area. So ecosystem diversity is the variety of habitats within an ecosystem, okay? So again, going back to succession and stuff, we talked about finding ponds and things like that on your range. Within a matter of feet, you can be inside water where, bacteria and different fish can live, and then, move a couple feet in, I don't know, some direction, and you're out of water. Obviously, fish couldn't live there, right? So that's something that you could talk about with that is ecosystem diversity, and that is different areas where different organisms can live within a single ecosystem. Species diversity, the number of different species in the biosphere or in a particular area. So obviously, again, you guys are both ranch kids, right? You both run cows for a living, but cows aren't the only organisms that live in those areas. So if you've moved cows, you've likely seen deer around. You've probably seen squirrels or rabbits or maybe elk or maybe coyotes or things like that. There's all different kinds of animals within ecosystems. And that's what they're talking about with species diversity within ecosystems in the world. Okay. Genetic diversity, again, we talked about, or I mentioned a second ago, genetic diversity, which is the variance within a species, right? So within the human species, you know, not everybody has long, straight blonde hair. Not everybody has giant muscles, obviously, right? I don't. Um, so there's a bunch of different variants within a species, and that has to do with the genetics of the individuals within the population. Okay. So again, you know, kind of going back to the cows, we talked about, you know, having a high quality cow herd means that your cows all are kind of uniform, right? The opposite of diversity. Well, that's the goal, right? But when you have organisms, obviously, and you have the genetic information being passed from generation to generation, not every cow is going to be exactly the same. That is where you can see genetic diversity, which is the difference between individuals within the population within a different or within a specific species. Okay, so if you have any questions about biodiversity, kind of broadly, again, feel free to send me an email. Biodiversity, I'm not going to read the benefits of biodiversity, those different kinds of, you know, in medicine and agriculture and stuff. They're super short little paragraphs. You guys can read them. You need to read them, but I'm not going to go through them right here. Obviously, I talked about how having diversity within an ecosystem allows it to come back from devastating events better. Diversity is always good when you're talking about, you know, like in soil, for instance, diversity of organisms within your soil. The more diversity you have, the more nutrient rich you're going to have your soil. So biodiversity is always good in those kinds of things. I am going to talk a little bit about resilience. So resilience describes a natural or human system's ability to recover after disturbance. Again, I talked about that a little while ago in terms of an ecosystem's ability to bounce back after a natural disaster. Resilience, that is talking about resilience, right? So we talked about in rangeland, obviously after a fire, usually sagebrush are gone and there's just pretty much grass left, right? Which is awesome for ranchers. Yeah, you're decreasing the diversity, but you're also decreasing the diversity, taking away species of plants that we consider to be, for the most part, pests. Okay. Resilience is essentially how well an ecosystem is able to come back and recover after something bad happens. Okay. And it is correlated to an increase in strength and resilience that's correlated to an increase in biodiversity. Grady, you are so loud. Gosh. Anyways, the more biodiversity you have within an ecosystem, or the more species that are, you know, within that ecosystem, the better chances are the resilience is going to be stronger for that area. So if something is to happen, if there's more than a couple of different species of organisms present in that ecosystem, it's going to have a better chance of bouncing back strongly than an ecosystem with less biodiversity. Okay. So moving on to page 188, ecosystem services and biodiversity. So I'll just read this first paragraph, and then you guys can go through, you know, all the different little subparagraphs where it's talking about the different ways that biodiversity services our ecosystems. I'm not going to read those, but I'll just hit the high point here, and then we'll be done. Human society depends on healthy ecosystems in a number of ways. Although many people don't think much about that dependence, ecosystem services are the benefits provided by ecosystems to humans, as shown in figure 612. Important ecosystem services include producing food, cycling nutrients, purifying water, storing carbon, regulating pests, polluting crops, and buffering the effects of extreme weather events, right? So there's a bunch of different ways that our ecosystem services, you know, the different things that we benefit from the ecosystem. That was a bad way to say that, right? But I don't know if you ever heard the term, but essentially our earth is the best water filter, right? The cleanest water you're ever going to get is water out of the earth. No Brita can compete with the earth. But there's a bunch of different ways beyond that our ecosystems and the world benefits, you know, the human population and the things that we do on the earth. And again, there's a bunch of different little sub paragraphs there on page 188 that it talks about the different ways. Go ahead and read all those. And it talks a little bit more about them on page 189. So that should be it for this section, guys. Again, it's pretty short, shouldn't take you very long. Go ahead and read it, hopefully before you watch this video, and then hopefully the video will help. And again, your assignment will be posted at noon today. It's 10:48 right now, so in about an hour from now, I don't know when exactly this video will be posted or whatever, but your assignment will be posted at noon on Thursday the 29th. So don't worry about that, and it's due on Monday. So all right, guys, we will talk to you later. Thanks.